It's been roughly 10 years since It Follows was released, and it was kind of a sleeper hit, at least as a mild sleeper hit, because this film was able to generate over $20 million globally on just a $1 million budget. And if you look at the Rotten Tomato scores, I mean, it was definitely a critic pleaser. I mean, it was lukewarm amongst audiences, but it has gotten a bit more of a following over the years because this was one of those horror movies that, I mean, it wasn't like an overtly scary one. I mean, there was some good moments to it, but for the most part, it definitely had like good direction, kind of a great creepy atmosphere to the whole thing. And the story was interesting, even though there was kind of like, I want to say plot holes, but kind of like questions, I will just say, about like some of the rules within this universe sort of thing. I mean, I think it could be explored a little bit more, but it was kind of unnecessary ultimately for the story that they were trying to tell. And it did leave it with an ambiguous ending, which I personally enjoyed. But unfortunately, when you get a popular movie that has an ambiguous ending, that's when you get information like this. So this is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. It follows sequels. They follow to Reunite stars Maika Monroe, director David Robert Mitchell for Neon. And this is what I don't like. And I mean, I'd say it's almost a problem with the industry as a whole, because you get a movie that's almost a standalone. I mean, or it really is just a standalone movie that's meant to be enjoyed on just a one viewing thing, and that's it. But when you get something successful, then people are always thinking like, okay, well, how can we make a sequel to this? Just as a little rundown, David Robert Mitchell is finally making his long-awaited follow-up to a horror hit, It Follows. Mitchell is reteaming with star Maika Monroe on They Follow, with Tom Quinn's Neon introducing the package to buyers at AMF this week. And this is just kind of a quick rundown for the people who haven't actually seen It Follows. They Follow will once again star Monroe as Jay Height, whom audiences met in the 2014 film as a young woman who, after having sex with her boyfriend for the first time, learns she will now be hunted by a mysterious entity. The only way to temporarily stave off death is to pass on the curse to someone else who will become next on the list, followed by the entity. And this movie could almost be seen as a allegory for just a person becoming an adult and realizing that life is finite. I mean, when you're a kid, you kind of are a bit more carefree about the world, but this one, it's like once you become an adult, as in symbolized by having sex for the first time, well, then you realize like death is a constant thing that's coming towards you. And the way the movie ended is kind of left it ambiguous whether it was staved off for good for the main character, or if it was just going to be a looming threat that she has to constantly live with. And that's actually something I really enjoyed about the movie, was the open ending to it. But a lot of people don't like those open endings. And unfortunately, when it comes to Hollywood, if there's actually some ambiguity to the way the movie ends, that means it leaves it room for a sequel if the movie is successful enough. The film grossed $21.9 million globally on a budget of $1 million. So like I said earlier, I mean, this is a very successful movie. Over the years, talent behind It Follows had discussed a sequel, with Neon Quinn suggesting in 2015 it could involve people turning the tables on the entity and following it to its source. No concrete plot details of They Follow have been revealed, however. And with the long gap between the release of the first one and this one, because usually if a director has that in mind when they're creating something, they'll try to make a sequel more immediately afterwards. I mean, this is not the director and writer coming up with this, but producer of it back in 2015 saying like potential plot ideas for this. But you kind of have to think like, well, why the long gap now between this? And I think I have the answer here. Well, David Robert Mitchell, the director and writer of It Follows, you look at his IMDb and there's not really a ton of stuff that he's made since then. And it's kind of a shame because, I mean, the only movie I saw of his was It Follows, and it was pretty well directed, and he definitely exhibited some talent behind it. And he hasn't really done a whole lot since then. And now he's kind of going back to the well to do They Follows, or at least that's what they're saying it's going to be called. And it comes across less as like it is a story that he wants to tell, and more or less like, okay, I have nothing really else going for me, so I'll go back to the most popular thing I've done and do a sequel of that. And if he does do this, it probably will generate a lot of buzz and actually make more money, I think, than the original movie did. But at the same time, I mean, I don't like that this is where the industry goes, where something is popular and there's a little bit of ambiguity in there. So the studios are thinking like, okay, let's just make a sequel, when the sequel is not only completely unnecessary, but in a way kind of ruins the original one to begin with. I mean, I guess you just have to think of it like I do, where a lot of things just kind of just forget about the sequel. Like, it never happens. I mean, just like, at least in my own head canon, certain sequels don't even exist. There's only 2 Terminator movies. There's only 3 Indiana Jones movies. I mean, just kind of along those lines sort of thing. And is this going to be like one of those things like, oh, this ruined the original? No, but I mean, I just think it's kind of pointless though. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Did you actually watch It Follows? What do you think about that? And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.